United Nations programs throughout Latin America, and even operating in the United States with the help of NGOs, are running the immigration crisis. This includes direct payments being made to illegal aliens and asylum seekers in the form of debit cards and even envelopes of cash. And the money for this is coming heavily from American taxpayers. This is according to Todd Bensman and his extensive reporting throughout Latin America. Bensman is a senior national security fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies and an award-winning journalist covering national security topics with a focus on the Texas border. He's also the author of the new book titled Overrun: How Joe Biden Unleashed the Greatest Border Crisis in U.S. History. Hey, Todd Bensman, thanks for being back on Crossroads.
Great to be here.
Well, Todd, you did a new book on the U.S.-Mexico border crisis, Overrun, and great work on it, by the way. You talk about something actually I've been talking about too, but you give a lot more detail on it, which is that the United Nations is paying illegal aliens to come to the United States. Tell us about this. I mean, how is the United Nations paying people to come here?
Well, it is true that the United Nations is very hands-on involved on the migrant trails all the way down into South America, straight up to the Texas border, all along the Texas border, in a number of ways. And in the most visible way is that they are showering the immigrants, the U.S.-bound immigrants, with cash in the form of debit cards, and you can ask them, the immigrants, to show you their debit cards, their UN cards. They'll pull them right out for you. It's, they get monthly stipends that are put on there every month, every 2 weeks.
How much money, roughly?
It depends. It's pegged to local cost of living. So if they're up near the Texas border, I found cards up there that were getting close to $400 every 2 weeks.
Wow.
So $800 a month. And in southern Mexico, like in Tapachula, down there on the Guatemala border, it's a little cheaper to live. And so it's like, more like a couple thousand pesos. Just a month or so ago, I was in Monterrey, Mexico, and found, the debit cards there, and they were, 2,800 pesos a month, which is like $120 or something. But the point is that this is a sustainability program. It's a program where the United Nations is making sure that people are able to stay the course, and that maybe when they're contemplating making the journey, and they're not sure they have enough money, they know in the back of their minds that they'll kind of be okay. So they'll pull the trigger because the UN will likely hand them cash or in these debit cards. But it's not just the debit cards. They also are providing vouchers for long-range transportation. They're paying the bus fares, the bus tickets, and also for lodging in youth hostels or hostels and in hotels all along the way. When you take it all together, they have all of the basic necessities of life on the road to the U.S. And that is a real deal. I know there's been some challenge about that, but there is a budget out that is in a public realm where the United Nations says in 2023 they plan to spend $450 million on cash-based assistance programs or cash-based intervention programs. CBI, and they just lay it out exactly what it's for, all three of those categories that I just told you.
Wow, geez.
One other thing I should mention that this is U.S. taxpayer funded.
So that money's come from Americans?
Yes, the majority of it, yes.
Jeez. So I actually found some of the same things when I was down at the U.S.-Mexico border. From what I saw, it was the United Nations bankrolling a lot of it. Is that what you're seeing as well? It was through the State Department bankrolling a lot of it. Do you also see it's the State Department bankrolling it through the UN?
Yes, that's one of the major sources. There's a division of the State Department that's doing that, but the United Nations is a multi-headed hydra. and so is the United States and its funding mechanisms. So there's money coming from all different places. From the Congress, from different parts of the executive branch, and it's really hard to figure out and untangle. I still have not been able to untangle, and neither have certain congressional offices that are working pretty hard on this right now. There's a lot of outrage, especially on the Republican side of the aisle, that U.S. taxpayer money is going to support, aid, and abet this sort of travel activity, smuggling activity, if you will, to sustain people on the way. And that's not all the money goes to. A lot of that money goes to psychological programs on the trail, where, for example, if migrants are turned down for asylum in Mexico, they can't proceed, they're stuck. They have to apply for asylum and get this card in order to get to the border. But if they get turned down, they can go to one of these UN-funded agencies and get memory excavation, psychological memory excavation.
What is that?
They are traumatic, have traumatically forgotten the actual persecution that would get them the asylum, and it's like 90% success rate, and then they are able to continue on. They also do a lot of training. American lawyers, for example, are all over Mexico doing training sessions on your human rights under the U.S. asylum law, which is basically a way to say, watch out what you say to the asylum officers. Here's what you shouldn't say, and here's what you should say. So there's a lot of stuff going on with the United Nations down there.
Jeez. Now, you said something really interesting just a bit ago. You said that the UN budget just came out, and the UN budget just states in plain language that they have all this money for these programs. Tell us about the UN budget on this.
Well, the UN projects that it needs about $1.7 billion for fiscal year 2023 and 2024 together to aid the migrants and people who are in place waiting to move, and people that are actually moving. That's a large amount of money, but it is all distributed among about 221 non-governmental organizations. A great many of them are U.S.-based organizations that have arms down there that are taking this cash and aiding and assisting the migrants down there. And the budget document, it's online. Anybody can read it. Anybody can access it. Nobody has written anything about it other than me, but you can see the entire list of NGOs right there, and how much money that they're each expected to need for their role in this mass migration.